Good evening, afternoon, may I have your attention, please? My name is Michelle Rollins, the mayor of the city of Douglasville. We're going to call this meeting to order. And this meeting, of course, is an informational meeting to hear about a property in downtown Douglasville in the old mill site. I know my voice is loud enough for everyone to hear me. And we will have the presenters come to us, and our city staff is going to give us some information and directives, and we will not have public comments at this meeting, but if you would like to stay over for the 6 o'clock meeting, you're welcome after our committee meetings at 5 to bring comments at that time. We will not make any decisions today. We're just gathering information, and we appreciate all of the community support that you're interested in what we're doing for the future, what we're trying to do. So we're not making any decisions today. This is just an information gathering session. So thank you again for your time. Our city manager, Marcia Hampton.
Thank you, guys. And just to kind of remind you where we are, because we have 4 presenters and we want to go through everything fairly quickly. Staff has tried to provide you with every piece of documentation that you will need to try to make a decision on this issue. Of course, you have 4 developers. What they are interested in is your support to apply for the tax credit program through the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. That is the primary reason why we're here. As being a GET community, as part of the Georgia Initiative for Community Housing, as well as the application process, you get points for participation in that program, and DCA only accepts 1 letter of support from you. So this is where the interest is. Just because if you were to move forward with this, for them to receive your support doesn't mean funding. They are competing with all developers across the state of Georgia. So this is not necessarily even step 1. If there is interest in moving forward. I have put in your packet a recommended time frame for us to revisit this issue once you hear all these presentations. That's part of my initial memo that I gave to you. The committee chair, I will ask him and the mayor to make final comments. If you look at that date, that'll give you enough time to digest the information you've received, receive more information from the public, as well as have us be able to provide you with any other additional information that you may need. Our staff attorney is here as well to answer any legal questions that you may have. She will be taking notes, and we will be prepared when we revisit this item to answer any questions. So, Mayor and Council, do you have any questions of me? If not, I will ask Mr. Lynn to bring in the first presenter.
They're already in the
All righty.
The first presenter is going to be Living Street Development Corporation at Walton Communities.
That is in tab 6. So everyone is in alphabetical order. Your presentation booklets are in alphabetical order, so as they present, you should be able to turn to the next tab.
All right.
My name is Dave Lawful. I'm with Walton Communities, and this is Noel Taylor.
Yeah, Noel Taylor. I'm with Marietta Housing Authority.
And we're proposing a development together, a joint development together. We've partnered on several deals before. And it's a great partnership that's worked to produce some amazing housing like what you see on the picture up here. Can you hear me? Is that close enough? You good? Perfect. You know, it's first of all, let me just say, Marietta Housing Authority is here. We do realize this is Douglasville. They're kind of a housing authority based in Marietta, but have the ability through their nonprofit Lemon Street Development Corporation to do work far and wide. And so developments that you would never know are affiliated with the housing authority. In Walton Communities, we produce everything from market rate communities to senior to affordable as well. So anything from $2,000 a month for a 2-bedroom to something that has a relationship with the housing authority. Over the years, over the past 27 years, we produced 8,000 apartment homes. We got our start in 1989, and this actually goes through 2018, but the number 8,000 does not include future. But mainly in the metro Atlanta area, and we've got some properties in Augusta. And a lot of those, of the ones that we currently own, it's about half and half affordable and market rate. a diverse amount of experience, starting with the top left. That's a rehab that we did. We partnered with Marriott Housing Authority on. This is more of an urban product in the Cumberland Galleria area. This is at the bottom right, bottom left, your left, is more of your standard suburban greenfield development. And then on the bottom right is a age-restricted community. That's the courtyard in the age-restricted community. One of the things that we feel makes Walton communities unique is we really embrace the idea that real estate is not just a building. It's literally part of your memories. Every time you went to school, you fell in love, you grew up, you did that oftentimes within the confines of, in the context of real estate. And as a steward of that, as essentially the backdrop of your memories, we try to create neighborhoods that matter. We partner with people in the community, whether it's churches, schools, nonprofits, what have you, to bring services into the community. We also try and motivate our residents to go participate in community events. So at the Hyde Museum, the MLK Center, the Atlanta Symphony, whatever, they go to those events, they come back, they bring the receipt, we pay 90% of their costs because we want them taking part of the cultural resources here in the community. This is some pictures of largely our community in Hiram, just up the road. And please feel free, go to any of our communities at any time. You don't have to call ahead, city official or community resident, check us out, kick the tires, please. But this is us interacting with some of our residents. One thing I like to point out is a bit of a differentiating factor. At the top, or this picture it's a playground, so what does it have to do with senior housing? Nothing, but for the fact that this community is our first affordable housing community, and it looks as good or better today than it did when we built it. Whenever you are looking for a development partner, I would encourage you to look at their oldest community and see how it looks today. This is a community that we built in Roswell. We planted the trees. These were actually planted in 2003, and now we've got this beautiful tree-lined boulevard. When I talk about being the backdrop of people's memories, I mean, that's what we mean. We want to create an environment where people are proud to come from. This is our deal in Hiram. Please, it's on 278. It's not that far away. You're more than welcome to go by. It's legacy of Walton Mill. If we had known this was an opportunity, we probably would have picked a different name. But this is actually the community in Hiram. So this is the inside of the Legacy Center. The great thing about senior communities is the turnover. People don't leave. They stay for a very long time, and we love that. So instead of leasing to new residents, we're actually serving the people that are there. So we have spaces for that. And oftentimes they get into their own little committees and they plan things on their own. But we're always serving the residents in some way, shape, or form. And this is the courtyard outside. It's got a community garden. This part of that, and you can't see all the different things in it, but there are actually edible things in there. So this is your site. One of the things when we were looking at the actual development of this site that we saw as a challenge to us is, Highway 92 is a great thing. This reconnection, bit of a, I was going to say blessing and a curse. In this, I got this off the website. I'm assuming they're implementing it in the way that it is on the website. You've got this sound wall right here, so as you're coming down 92, it's going to be hard to see the property. So you get here to the intersection that takes you to the main road, and you really haven't even seen the property yet, so the visibility's not that great. As you go under, that's an underpass, you go under the road, you're on the other side, it's hard to get back over because those railroad crossings are being closed. So what I would propose is, all these red dots are residential eminent domain. It's just a consideration, a consideration as you do it. Maybe acquire these houses and get an intersection right here, something like that. This is, as a developer, what we do is try and work with sites to make them better. And this is our recommendation as an opportunity to you guys. If you want to develop this and create a gateway into your city, it's going to be hard to see the gateway if you got a sound wall in front of it before you get there. So in working with DCA, one of the key things as a municipality, you guys are essentially a site-specific developer. We do deals every year, so we're time dependent. We do them every year. But you're looking at one site over time that you're going to try and position to be a high quality development and a high likelihood to get to win approval with DCA. And any of the guys here will also tell you if they're going the same route. Some of these things give you points, and points mean you win and you get the allocation and you get the investment into your community. Long-term ground lease, a redevelopment plan for the area. Sidewalk connectivity, so off-site improvements is the way DCA frames it, but if you connect the site, there's a little bit of a gap between the site and downtown as far as the sidewalks are concerned, and then also the commercial area, kind of the old 92 area, would be a good improvement, and then zoning obviously needs to be zoned. We would suggest 2 phases. 160 is kind of a rough number. The community can decide what's best for it, but I think there's an opportunity to do a couple of phases of senior. It provides a good efficiency for your operator, and you want a long-term, financially feasible deal. And then environmental remediation. I don't know what's there. It's an old mill. I would assume that there might be something dirty there from an environmental perspective, but that's just part of the process. Typically, that's done through brownfield remediation, and we've done that before. When we design for an age-restricted community, what we see are, they're smaller units, but they're complete units. I don't know if any of you guys, has anybody ever shopped for independent living at all? Anybody? Okay. So the rent in independent living for your mom or whatever is probably $3,000 to $5,000 a month, which is crazy. This is more in line of $700, $800 a month. In addition to that, for $3,000 a month, typically you get a kitchenette, maybe a mini fridge, a microwave, and a sink, but because you got a meal plan and that's what you're paying for. But a lot of the folks that need this type of housing they want a low maintenance, lock and leave lifestyle. They don't want to take care of a single family home, and to have everything managed for them is great, but they don't want to spend $3,000 a month. They can pour cereal in the morning and they can cook a meal at night. So they're full kitchens, full baths, full bedrooms, and then in addition to that, this is the community area, what I like to call the rest of their home. We've got some folks, Legacy of Walton Lakes, on Camp Creek Parkway, and they call themselves the ladies of the manor, and they've got this 3,000 square foot, living space, which they, affectionately refer to as their manor. And it's a great environment for them to spend their time. And then in the evenings, they go back to their apartment, or maybe they're a bit more introverted, they go back to their apartment. And obviously, there's the outdoor amenity space as well. This is the inside of the home, so you've got eat-in kitchens, which just makes it a little bit more efficient. A lot of times, we've actually started using kind of a wood-plank vinyl product on the floor, which is a low-maintenance, great-looking product. Walk-in closets, and then as far as the timeline, what we would suggest, specifically because of the need for a redevelopment plan, and there may be one, I'm not 100% sure, but it needs to be consistent with what DCA requires, is work on that first and then come back for an application in 2017 at the earliest, and then this gets you to leasing it in 2019. It's a long process. And then the next phase would be subsequent to this. So the next phase would be a year behind. But to do it right, sometimes it does take a while. The investment into the community with both deals would be roughly, I've got a little typo there, but roughly $25 million. Okay. And that's it. That's my quick run through. So I know that, okay, yeah, yield to mayor and council.
Do you provide transportation?
We do not.
So everybody
Well, yes, we do park it. Usually, it's about one per apartment home, one space per home. You know, they are is typically an active adult population. Now, I will say that we do have a couple of 15-passenger buses that we use, and we'll go. So it's not a full transportation service, but we will run to the grocery store once a week, or it's election season, so we'll take them to the polls or what have you, that kind of thing.
Do you manage the apartment complex after it's been built?
Oh yeah, we're long-term owners. If you look at our history, most of those we still own, the vast majority. And it's really only been the rare occasion where we've ended up selling stuff.
What's the, I guess the prerequisite in order to get into one of these facilities? What is that? Income?
Yeah.
What is that?
It's based on area median income, which is, there's some HUD words coming your way, but area median income in the Atlanta MSA, the metropolitan statistical area, which extends from Bremen all the way to Buckhead and then beyond to the other side. So you've got the same rents from Bremen and Buckhead, which is crazy. But you guys are right in the middle, so it's a bit of a sweet spot. For a family of 4 right now, it's $64,000 is median income. This is restricted at 60% of that. So family of 4 making $30,000. Obviously, seniors are single, so you may know better than I. It's probably right around 28 for a single person. So anybody on Social Security, if all you guys Social Security, you qualify. When you get those checks right now, I know I'm answering a question, I'm blocking a bridge in here, but I'm going beyond it. But when you get that check down, you know, they don't inflation adjust it for what it's going to be in 40 years. Those people looked at those checks 40 years ago thinking they were going to be okay. And now our seniors are waking up and it's hard to pay for rent, utilities, and food.
You mentioned family of 4. This is a senior facility, so...
No kids.
No kids.
Correct.
So the family of 4 could be...
That's just where HUD looks at a family of 4 as an archetype for what median income means. So you can ignore it. Yes.
How do you police that to have no children?
Well, yeah, good point. We're on the property. They're on the lease. You know, so if a grandparent is keeping their kids long term or something of that nature.
That was my point.
Yeah, so if that were to happen, we would ask them to leave. We'll ask the kids to leave. And it is a violation of the lease, and so we could terminate the lease and then begin eviction.
So then basically, if a grandparent is the sole provider for that child, then they would not qualify.
That's correct.
Okay. Second question. I thought it interesting, you made mention in your written material, and you just made mention on the map. Can we go back to that slide of the street and of the project that we have ongoing right now?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that you would potentially need access through Fulton Drive in order to access this property.
And I may have the wrong, I was trying to reference, that's this cul-de-sac right here.
Yes, which doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, so I didn't know what to call this intersection
Okay.
or this access road.
Good point.
So,
I'm just curious, would you be looking for the city to be involved to make that happen for you as a condition of this? Or is that something that you all will do on your own?
yeah, we were looking for the city too.
Well, I know that we're working with the state. I don't want to take advantage of the time. Of course, we had to work with the state. This is a state project.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how easy that's going to be to get that wind wall, sound wall, whatever the proper term is, to be removed, and there'll be a light or anything to slow the traffic down as it goes through that area. That's not question.
No, it's a valid question. You know, in looking at it, and I haven't been involved, you guys have been every inch of the way, and I'm just kind of coming in, pulling this off of a website.
Sure.
You know, I didn't know if there was already going to be a traffic light there, something, you know, at this intersection, you know, for left-hand turners there. You know, if there was going to be something, then to make it, you know, a 4-way would be the suggestion.
Thanks.
I've been to your site at Lemon Street.
Yes, sir.
several times. Are there any plans in the future for that Lemon Street school there on the site?
At this time, there's not. John Whelan is developing the homes next to Lemon Street School, and in the beginning of the process, they approached the school, but the school, of course, is owned by Merida City Schools. and they have to put out an RFP even to sell the property or to have it redeveloped, so they weren't ready to do anything with the school on Lemon Street. I don't know if it's in the Historic Society or not. I think, I know the front is used as a library right now, as a public library, but there's nothing in the plans as of right now for that school.
Two more questions.
Quickly, I was going to ask, when I was on the housing board with Ms. Patrice Williams, we came to Marietta, and you had us view some of the properties. Were the homes, the cottages, that was Walton, that was you as well, in Marietta?
Village, I
Your
suppose?
village.
The village.
Yeah. We developed the site, as in we were the land developer for that overall site, but the homes were actually built by someone else. So,
And two, uniquely, because we have the railroad tracks, and you were talking about the sound wall, what would absorb? I don't know if any of the properties, I have visited some, and Councilman Siegel has gone by some today, and probably other council members, just like Councilman Davis said on Lemon Street. Our property would be unique if we were to accept this because of the railroad tracks. How would that affect that property and sound barriers for residents that's sleeping there with that train coming by?
yeah, it's not entirely uncommon to build next to a railroad. With the railroad closings, I'm not sure what the whistle or horn, where they blow them or if they blow them in the city. I know in Ackworth we worked on a project where once they didn't even close the railroad crossings, but they made them robust. They made them silent crossings, barriers, so you couldn't go around the arms and that kind of thing, and they were able to work with CSX, I think was the railroad of that to where they wouldn't blow their whistle, and that mitigates a good part of it. In addition to that, building materials. So what I would envision. Yeah, what I would envision is that you've got your amenity area in the back towards the residential area, any outdoor amenity, and you could build it in such a way to where you had larger living rooms instead of a balcony on the railroad side, and with your building materials and windows, you would need to address the sound.
Okay, so you would reinforce to help absorb that sound.
There are acoustical engineers that tell us what we need to do. But that's a consideration, and when we're looking at it from the beginning, it'd be one of the, environmental and sound would be one of the first things we looked at, and that, we're not sure what the outcome of that would be.
I've got a few questions. You mentioned potential for a gray field. Are y'all going to be, if that is, if it does develop into a gray field situation, is the city going to be responsible for the remediation?
Yeah, the assumption was that it would be delivered clean, was the idea. If that's not possible, then we would need to figure out a way to work on that. Typically with brownfield, there's a tax abatement that helps pay that back, right? So with the brownfield program, the expenses of the brownfield remediation come back to you in the form of tax abatement.
Either way, the city is going to be responsible for the cost of that cleanup.
Yes. And so I guess my point is, if the taxes on the property is low income, it's income producing property, so if there are any taxes on the property, it'd be very minimal property taxes, so getting that money back would be my concern, because there wouldn't be property taxes sufficient to recover the money.
Right. You brought up my next concern is you guys aren't offering to purchase this property.
Right.
And I've looked at several proposals here, but it's simply pretty much a long-term lease.
Correct.
Which means the city holds the title, so we don't ever receive any property income or property taxes from this parcel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's correct.
Yes, that's accurate.
And when you say investment to the community of $23 million,
Mm-hmm.
I reviewed your spreadsheets in here. That's really just for building. You're not really adding anything to the community other than what's on your site. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, there would be, obviously the money spent building the site. There would also be the people, living there that, long term, and the people working there long term. But other than that, yes.
Okay. And then this isn't going to be a gated community at all.
I mean, I suppose it could be, it couldn't be.
My question is the maintenance on it. The city's going to be responsible for the upkeep of the roads and other potential amenities
Around it. No. We would take care. Every inch of the property would be under our care
So
and
we have
concern.
no respons- the city doesn't have
Yeah, no responsibility of that.
The road keep up or anything
Yeah.
within
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. And likely there wouldn't, I mean, the way these are constructed, there's not much of a road in it, but all the landscaping and whatnot, we would like to maintain that.
Maybe another way to ask that question, Councilman Miller, is, are there any public streets that the city is
No.
responsible for within the development?
No.
And then my last question, I was involved in the future land, developing the future land use map. It doesn't seem like this development is in keeping with the future land use map that the city has in place. Is that, I mean, obviously you guys are looking at the profit, not for coming here, but
Right.
it doesn't seem that this is in keeping with what the bodies of the city in developing the future land use map has currently in place.
Yeah, and that's why one of the key requirements is zoning, which is not, it's not by virtue of any award of any RFP does a property get zoned. So that would be a process that we would work with the community and the city to come up with a zoning that works for everyone.
But you're asking the city to change our focus on this piece of property from where it has been under future land use maps that we've been operating on for 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, so looking forward to the next, next 100 years or whatever, however long this property would be, senior housing, it would be the question to the community is, okay, what do you want it to be going forward? And that would be a conversation that we would look to have, obviously, with the mayor and city council and with the community involved as well.
The concern is that we've got a piece of property that we have value in, that we're not going to reap any benefit off of by doing these proposed projects. And so how long is your proposed lease?
They can be, I'm asking for 99 years.
35 years, or I've seen
Well,
99 years.
Yeah, I mean, to make it as similar to a purchase as possible. And we, 99 years would make it as similar to a fee simple type situation.
My overall point is we use taxpayer dollars to purchase this property and have a benefit there. I don't think it's fair to our taxpayers for us to turn around and basically give the property off for $10 a month for 45 years or 99 years. I just don't think that's fair. And I see the situation where we have a future land use plan that we've been adhering to for years and years, and now you're asking us to change the zone there. And then we have further potential expense in remediating any brownfield and acquiring houses to get an intersection there. It's all money that the city is having to expend on behalf of bringing something in that doesn't even adhere to our future land use plan. So again, what's the benefit to the city? I mean, your investors are expecting a return, but our taxpayers are expecting a return.
I mean, what I would hope would happen is that the area between 92, this new 92, and the downtown Douglasville would begin to redevelop. As you walk down the street today, there are certainly, this being one of them, opportunities for revitalization in the area. Our goal is that we could partner together with the city to begin that revitalization. So that's I think long term what we would want to see.
But you're not paying for any revitalization outside of the parameters of your development.
Yeah, other than the 25 million or whatever investment, we're not proposing anything beyond that.
Well,
Yes.
I was going to say, Mr. President.
Thank you so much for all these properties. We'll have an opportunity to discuss more in detail all the nuances as far as it relates to city zoning and all that between the council. Thank you again. We appreciate your time. And at this time, we'll hear from the second group, which is Main Street Homes, their proposal.
Hi, my name's Jim Markle. I'm with the development team that's representing our proposal with Main Street Homes. Just a quick introduction. We've got Jeff Rice here with us. He's the owner and principal of Main Street Homes, and Mandy Young also works with the development team. We can answer any questions about our proposal. Just a quick background. We specialize in affordable senior housing. Have 120 units of affordable senior housing up the road in Villa Rica. I would encourage any of you all, it's right by the Publix at Mirror Lake. If anybody does not know what affordable senior housing is or has questions about it, I would encourage you to go visit. It's just 10 miles up the road. Great property. Also invested in 110 units in Carrollton on 27 called Park Place, Phase 1 and 2, just north of downtown. Same thing, senior housing, great product, very similar to what we'd be proposing here. Both of those locations, believe it or not, Villa Rica has a waiting list of over 600 people. The Carrollton location has a waiting list of over there's two phases, one's over 80, one's over 100 people. So there is a demand in the immediate area. And so basically, I think we started looking at the city maybe 3 or 4 years ago. The city became a GIT community, had talked to the city of Covington, where we also have some senior housing in downtown called Harristown Park, another lovely facility if you'd like to go visit. Which actually would kind of be it is an infill development that would look similar to this, that is how we got introduced to the city initially. Anyway, our proposal in general, what we're looking at is typically what we would do is between 60 and 80 units of housing, we propose it would be turned in this year under the a DCA 9% round, which is, the applications are due June 9th if you were going to do that. I say between 60 and 80 units because there are a lot of questions that need to be answered about the site in particular. And I cannot give you specifics as far as what we would do until we were chosen as a team member so we could begin to spend some money to figure out what we have with the site. Are there issues with the site? Are there environmental cleanup issues? Is there remediation required? What are the costs going to be? How do we get a plan in place? How do we absorb that? Those are the big questions. I do know for a fact that we have a noise issue on the site. I've had a noise study done. Our environmental consultants did a noise study probably 6 months ago. And just because obviously the first thing you see is a railroad track, you want to know, well, what are the noise issues? So essentially, the smartest thing to do is to stay on the south end of the site with your development. It's kind of a rough draft of our site plan. As you see here, you've got a 75 decibel level line that runs through here that you cannot build any housing in. So I've kind of got this kind of designated as a green space, or it says City Park on the slide. And then we've got another 70 decibel level. It drops to 70 decibel levels about the parking lot. And then from 70 below, we're good. And that's where the housing would go. Any type noise issues can be mitigated through architectural standards, things like that. It's not a big deal once you see where our housing is. And that, I think what we're showing there is 80 units. It's a 3-story building, all interior corridor, with a couple of quadplexes, and it's reminiscent of just kind of examples of the design, how it typically would look if it was a single story or the 3-story. There's just renderings, and just some interior pictures of some of the actual developments that we own. And again, the timeline for this stuff is you need to get to work now if you're going to make your deadline in June. If rezoning is something that needs to be done, that would need to start immediately. There is time to do everything. The environmental piece of all this would need to start immediately. And again, I think that anything that we would do, we would cover the cost for. We're prepared to do a phase 1, phase 2, share the information with you all. We don't look to burden the city, with assuming a lot of the costs. We don't come to the city looking for tax abatements, things like that. We are a for-profit developer. We pay property taxes. As far as what is this piece of property worth versus, how much can you pay for it? All of that's up in the air right now. Until you get an environmental assessment on the site and figure that out, we have to come up with a game plan of how we work together with that aspect on the property. Outside of that, what you can pay and what you end up paying would pretty much be offset by the mitigation. However, we do know that this is going to be about $11-12 million development going in on that. That's housing for seniors. It's 15%, I believe, are set aside is simply they're not income restricted. The remaining are income restricted at least 60% or below the area median income for either age 55 and over or age 62 and over, depending on how we wanted to structure that. This is just a general proposed budget that kind of breaks down where we get to $11.5 million. And again, I had to leave things out like acquisition costs, because again, those are a lot of things that we have to sit down and figure out once we know and have some of the variables pinned down. That's an example of an investment we own in senior housing in Covington, Georgia. It's an infill site on 2 acres, similar to this. That's a picture of the Villa Rica property called Connor Senior Village. There's 2 phases, 120 units, 600-person wait list. This is a very similar example of what our 3-story product that Jeff owns. This is in Albany, Georgia, 3 stories. It's another picture of Harristown Park. It would be very similar, like I said, 3-story, and it also would have the single-story cottages as well. That's just room layouts that we typically use. These would be all 1- and 2-bedroom apartments. Again, more Main Street homes. I think it's important to emphasize that this development team that's doing this proposal, we win a senior deal every year. Since 2010, 2011. We're not missing a deal. This is a project, if you're interested in getting funded, that we feel like, with our team, that this would be one that we could bring to fruition. We have experience with all the aspects that would need to go into putting a deal like this together. I think another thing to consider, if we do have environmental issues, you want to try to get this entered into the brownfield program, because the brownfield program with the state essentially gives you a mitigation plan. It opens us up to grant money for mitigation, and more importantly, it also eliminates any liability that you would have once you perform your mitigation. Something we have experience in as a company. We're just finishing that up on a mill in Greensboro, Georgia, that we renovated for housing, and we entered that property into the brownfield program. We went up to Georgia EPD with the same environmental consultant we would use on this site. Got a mitigation plan in place. Again, this is if it's necessary, and we found some money to help offset the cost of the cleanup. And then also the beauty of the program, like I said, is you're then protected from any potential liability on a site like an old mill site that may be an environmental cleanup site. I think that's a very important thing to consider when you look at redeveloping this site. And again, it's something we have experience with, so very comfortable doing it. We also do historic renovations, so we're sensitive to the to the site, and want to try to capture any kind of any kind of feel that the city wants to help achieve with the site. If there's a sense that you want to try to do something on the site to fit with downtown, we're good partners. We're open to working with you all. Again, that's kind of our proposal. Honestly, I do better at answering questions if you guys have any.
And we do have 10 minutes for question and answer, so I want everybody to be able to ask a question.
Not all one councilman, or just two councilmen, good, all questions.
Yes, correct.
So you're first. I do have a question. Given the size of the property, about 7 acres or so, with half of it being, because of the decibel level, as you mentioned, being uninhabitable, how much does that really limit what you're able to do on the rest of the property?
I think that it gives us, at a minimum, from a housing standpoint, it gives us half the property safely, in my mind. The decibel level, the 75 line is at the very north of it, and that is kind of the, you just really kind of want to, you can't do any housing there. Everything else is, I'm sorry, I don't have that. I have that in a handout. If I can hand these, if you guys want to look at this. Okay, you've got it in your map. Okay, so if you look at that, you see the 75 line. No housing can go in there. From 75 south is mitigation. From 70 below, the mitigation is reasonable. Given the slope of the land, sloping away, you don't have the noise issues, in the outdoor amenity areas, and everything else is fine from an architectural standpoint. And again, I think if you saw our site plan, we'd kind of proposed a park area. That really seems to me that it's kind of a good use for it.
And the second question is, how do you see this project fitting in with the rest of the Mill Village residential area right behind it?
Yeah, similar to what we did, invested recently in a project in Greensboro. It was actually the renovation of the mill, and the village sat around it, and I think that obviously, looking at the context of that, I think it would fit well with the 3-story building if we can capture some of the elements, if that's what you're seeking to do as far as aesthetically.
I find the architecture of the Mill Village very quaint, and some people might say it looks run down, but I love those little houses.
Right.
I know you can't build that into this, but
you can make your single story though. What you typically try to do a lot of times is capture an element of the village. A lot of these mill villages, for example, may have a certain dormer or a certain little vent in the front that they're all. I think in LaGrange, I remember a mill village there that you try to capture little elements and incorporate them into your plan. Then again, those are things that we're willing to sit down with the neighborhood and with the city, and let's come up with a plan together as far as how we want this to look and feel. I was asked in the RFP, we were asked in the RFP to come up with a proposal and a plan, and that is a draft plan. We have a lot of flexibility with what we can do.
I would just add, I think one of the things we did notice was that the cottage style of the Mill Village is something that definitely is a characteristic that we would like to encapsulate. Personally, both sets of my grandparents were from the mill. They worked in the mills, and so, that was one of the things I wanted to make sure to capture that, whatever element, and I think that cottage style element is what kind of sets apart the Mill Village here in Douglasville.
Yes, sir.
Did I hear you correctly that part of your development would be income restricted and part would not be?
Yes.
And also, if there is environmental cleanup, whatever grants that you can get and have paid for, whatever is left over that's not paid for in the city, or would y'all be?
That would be, we would absorb that. If this was a viable development that we were to do, that cost is also included in the viability. We wouldn't look for the city to necessarily clean it up. However, we wouldn't look for the city to turn around and think that, I mean, that there's a really high value on the property if there's going to be a sales price associated with it. I mean, it would need to be a balance if there's a lot of mitigation.
I have a chance that it's your property down at the Mirror Lake.
Yes, sir.
Very nice property. My question, will this be a gated community? And I provide a lot of service from Miranda 1 and 2 on Auburn Avenue. Are you familiar with that senior housing project?
Not particularly.
Franklin closed all the projects down and built senior housing, which people love it. And that property is 7 acres, so it probably will have to be gated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes, I agree. The site plan itself does not show a fence. That's a requirement. If that is a requirement, we would certainly do it. Even if it's not a requirement, we typically look at these things on a case-by-case basis and do that. Obviously, there's a very busy road also on the north. I mean, it makes sense to gate it. I have no issues, doing that. We do it often.
I noticed your plan was a little different than the rest of the proposals. The 70 decibel noise level, is that a DCA requirement? I guess why I'm asking that is we're seeing some proposals that have stuff at the front of the property, but your proposal says that it can't be done. Is that a DCA requirement?
It's a HUD requirement, and it can't be done at 75. Anything from 75 to 65 has to have some sort of mitigation. Below 65, you're clear. The 70 line is more of a line that we show for our comfort level. Anything from 70 to 75, these are HUD guidelines. And anything from 70 to 75, it's harder to mitigate. It's more expensive.
You manage the property after you build it?
Yes, sir. That is, we're long-term owners and managers. We manage the property in Mirror Lake. We manage probably, I think we're around 8,000 units as a management company. Manage all the properties in Georgia. We sign long-term ownership agreements. We cannot sell the property. I think we do extended use periods for 30, 40 years.
Are you looking to purchase the property, or are you looking for another long-term lease from the city?
We are not set on one way or the other. I can show you the benefits of both as far as competitive scoring. The applications are competitive. You compete against other cities in the state, and the highest scoring deals win. And I think that there are advantages to purchasing it. There are also advantages to leasing it. And it's more an option where we would need to sit down with you and show you the advantages of purchasing it versus leasing it, and you might not feel that that's an advantage at the end of the day. I have no objection to purchasing it, and I have no objection to leasing it. Leasing it does not really preclude us. I mean, if we lease it, you guys then kind of have to know that we're in the deal it's a 45-year lease, and we're going to be in that lease for 45 years together. You're not going to come see another owner, and we're fine with that.
I just don't want to lose property taxes on these properties in the city. The city could benefit.
Right.
One last question for me is the park that you're suggesting, would that be city? I saw this is the city park. So there would be a discussion about the city developing this park and maintaining the park?
Yes, and this is how I see that. If we were to purchase the property, or if we were going to lease the property, any environmental cleanup that needed to be done that we agreed to do would include that part of the site. So essentially, if you think about it, you're going to get, if you've got a dirty site right now, you're going to get a cleaned up site that is worth something at the end of the day. We can't build housing and have that not cleaned up. And it's important to us to get it cleaned up, so we're willing to pay the cost to get that site cleaned up properly. And then at that point, it's like I said, If we don't own it and you wanted to do something else with it, I really don't have a problem with that either. But I would like to all sit down and kind of figure out what do we want to do with that. But at the end, but our proposal would include cleaning up the entire site, whether we're only using half of it or all of it. The whole site needs to be cleaned up, and we budget for that.
Had some costs associated with doing it and all of that.
Not the cleanup. That's not what that's not in my mind what we're proposing. I mean, unless there's costs associated with you guys applying for a grant or something like that.
Thank you, Mr. Marcel. It says here in your architecture, engineering, environmental estimate costs $100,000 for environmental, but that is not that 11.5 bottom line with brownfield. You would apply for other grants and all of that for the brownfield for environmental. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And then the 7 acres, you're moving all the way back so that the noise would, it would really be a buffer and gated to be the last 3 or 4 acres nearer to the residential that it currently is. And that open field is near the tracks. And the
Yes.
highway.
Yes, and again, that is an initial proposal. We're open to changing the site plan, but in my mind, yes, we would only want to develop the back half and then not really have the front half necessarily be part of our development. We would fence and we would gate the back half, and that would be us. We would clean up the entirety, however.
Yes. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. We'll move on to the next group. Thank you. Thank you so much for your proposal.
Don't do that.
Real Tech. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. My name is Dale Smith, and I represent Realtex Development for the Southeast. Realtex, very quickly, I'll give you a highlight of who we are. We are a developer domiciled in Austin, Texas. And we have built over 5,500 LIHTC properties in the states of Texas, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, and Virginia. We've built about 2,200 senior developments, elderly and seniors, and we currently have done 45 developments in that territory. We develop, we build, and we manage our own properties. All of our properties we prefer to be gated properties. Oh, I'm sorry. That might help. Thanks. Does that help a little bit? Now is it working? Good. I'm sorry about that. So in a little bit more about Realtex, one of our real slogans that we like to do is we like to maintain a link to the past while building for the future. And we like to incorporate a lot of features on the interior parts of our plan here would be to build on the back part of senior development. We're proposing 98 units on the back part. Again, I've come out and had a noise study done as well as an apartment inventory study done of Douglasville. I started working with Douglasville probably 2.5 years ago. Looked very hard at the old jail property with the county folks and the authority. And since that time, got introduced to this project and developed a passion for it and what it could be. The property lends itself, as we were talking, and I think one of the other parties very eloquently stated, the front part is going to be very difficult to develop unless we can get sound barrier. We would propose building the senior property on the back part. Now, the front part could have many options. One of the things we want to incorporate in our senior property is what's called telemedicine. And I have already started working and have been very much in the forefront of developing telemedicine for senior properties, wherein we go work with WellStar here in Douglasville, and we develop methodologies where they monitor their drugs, and they can monitor heart rate, blood pressure. For every year that we can keep people in an independent living environment, we save the state, the city, and the county tremendous amounts of dollars in what you all know as indigent care for the elderly. So we would like very much to be on the forefront, if we've chosen, to develop telemedicine in concert with Wellstar and or the University of Georgia Medical Group. The front part, I don't know exactly when they get the 92 highway built, how it's going to totally impact that, but we could consider the city carving the front part out, doing either a park, or what might work if it were conducive is to have some retail space where you may have a medical clinic there, or a drugstore, or some things that would really be of benefit to the senior, and then have a nice green space between that and the senior project on the back. Our site plan proposal is for a 3-story garden-style apartment with 98 units. They would all be elevators, and all of our properties are gated. I think LIHTC has some very stringent guidelines on who can live in there and what age. We don't normally, we make the leasee sign an agreement that they will not have anyone in the place, I think it's more than 3 weeks at any one time, staying on the property. And so there are very stringent provisions that you can impose to make sure the properties are well maintained. We have had considered a 45-year lease, but we are open to an option to buy the property. We just don't know what that price is at this particular time. I think some of the concerns that we would have is the timing. Can we get this done and into the 2016 cycle? Applications are due in June, and with that timeline, it's going to be very difficult to get the phase 1 environmental. There's a pond of some sorts on the property I hadn't totally identified. We don't know whether there's any groundwater contamination in that particular pond or not. Obviously, the noise level we talked about. And the only thing that we would like to see from the city that would help is that at Highway 92 and I think it's Durley Lane, if we could get a walkway from the project to a bus stop at that location, that would greatly enhance the scoring ability of the project from DCA standpoint. That and upfront property, how we would deal with that would be the only obligation that we would even consider part of what we'd ask the city to do. And we would be willing to make that a park and forget about the retail space if it would not facilitate it and work. Some of the real positive points, as I indicated, is I had an apartment inventory study done and engaged a market firm to do that. There's a very good demand, very strong demand for senior housing within Douglasville. I don't see that being a problem at all. And we believe that actually, if we could do a phase project, if you didn't do the retail in the front, we may be able to come back in a 2-year period and put a phase 2 senior development in there, or a family development. That's an open option as well. All of our architectural features, obviously we have Energy Star appliances. On all 2nd and 3rd floors, we have gathering areas. We have a computer room on each floor. We would provide craft rooms for the seniors. They would have outdoor facilities for gardening, probably walking paths as well. And all of our interior features meet or exceed all of HUD and DCA threshold standards. I'm open to answer any questions. I'm trying to keep this thing on a good timeline here, but I am open to answer any questions you might have.
Give me your name again, sir.
I'm sorry, Dale, D-A-L-E Smith, S-M-I-T-H. And I think, does everybody have a package, a complete package they received? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for your presentation. I do have a question, really it ties into the comments that you made in that we have had some concern within the community concerning the fact that we really are not in a position yet to even know what the Highway 92 reroute project upon its completion will provide us with.
Right.
As far as access, as one of the groups has mentioned, as far as traffic, as far as usability of the parcel that you see there that's in question here. So I'm a little surprised that there's as much flexibility being introduced by the three groups thus far that have presented on this site. And I'm assuming it has something to do with the fact that these are in high demand as far as getting the projects identified and ready to go in this calendar year in order to get into the pipeline. I believe
Right.
Seems to be the sticking point of each group. Is that basically the situation?
Certainly, yeah. You know, with the application due in June the 9th, you know, you'd need to start and make a decision probably by April 1, realistically.
Well, on the city side, in my own opinion here, I think that we are, in my own opinion, we are early in trying to come up with the highest and best use to benefit our citizens and our community when we don't know what we have.
Exactly.
And
makes
so
it very difficult.
I would understand your position and each of your group's positions in how you are open, because you don't know either.
No.
Because this project has been ongoing as far as the 92 bypass for over 20 years.
Right.
And just has gotten into, I think, in our second year with it. So I appreciate your being honest and straightforward about it being a difficult situation, as with one of the other groups saying, well, we may be able to get access off the new road. We don't know if the state's going to give you that or not. We're just as much out in the dark about it as you are.
Right.
From that standpoint. But I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
You made a comment about family development. Now, would that, as another feature of the area, is that something that's negotiable? In other words, we would have input to that, so you know, we only want seniors?
Oh, yes, very much so. It's just, it was an option that you could either do retail, perhaps do a family development, perhaps do another senior development, perhaps do nothing but green space. Like you said, once you see what that highway is going to do, it makes it a lot easier to make those kinds of decisions.
And you manage your facilities also after you develop them?
We do. And we always are committed to the project for a minimum of 30 years.
I just had a question. We've heard 23 million from another proposal. We've heard 11 million from another proposal. I was looking at your cost estimate here. I only see a $700,000 figure.
Yeah, that's all pre-development work. Now, what you're really looking at, in ballpark numbers, you're probably looking at $100,000 to $110,000 per unit. All right, so if you're building 98 units, you're looking at roughly $10 million net of land cost, okay, or whatever that cost is. Plus, you're looking at that $600,000 or $800,000 to get the project ready to be built on. So you're looking at a minimum of $12 million project to build 98 units, a minimum. I think the other party that first presented said they were looking at 160 units in 2 phases.
And their average cost per unit is 153, if my math is right, 153,000. Y'all are looking at 110.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the 2016 QAP, I think it's capped of how much you can put into the development. And I can't remember whether it's 110 or 140,000 per unit, but there is a cap on how much you can do. Our units run about $110 a square foot.
I would just think there'd be a difference between a $40,000 difference in a unit of this size would be a lot.
Yeah, I wouldn't think there would be that much difference, because I think most people that are going to present is going to tell you they're going to use Energy Star. They're going to be at least a silver or gold LEED certified, Earthcraft, so forth, and it's pretty standard from that standpoint.
And again, just to be fair on my question, your community investment is really just the parameters of that property. Y'all aren't going to sidewalks and impact fee. You know, you're not going to be subject to that, any type of impact fee or anything like that.
No, but we probably would provide a van, a 15-passenger van, and run people to grocery stores and things like that on a routine basis if we were chosen. And we work very closely with the network of community service activities to make sure we provide very good service to all of our seniors in terms of the amenity packages we put in there.
And Were you the one that mentioned the bus stop?
Yes, I am, yeah.
What bus what kind of bus are you referring to there?
They don't have a bus service.
You don't have a bus service now?
No.
Well, that creates an issue. Maybe I should have said you need to get to a bus service. We don't have a bus service.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll have our last proposal, TPG residential. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Thank you for taking the time. I thought I wanted to go last, but I'm pretty sure that you guys have heard all that you want to hear. But we thank you for your time. We thank you for the opportunity to offer the RFP, and we hope that you'll like what we have to say. The first thing I'd like to do is just give you a little idea of who we are. We have been in affordable housing since the late 1960s. I'm proud to be a third generation in a family business that was incorporated back in 1918. That's important to me. I think it's important to the community because when you've been in business almost 100 years, it shows you can be flexible. You know how to change course when the winds change, and it shows the strength of the development team. We're also a local-based developer. We're in Vinings. We are 20 minutes away from the site on a Sunday morning and an hour and a half if you're coming in on Monday morning. I want to take just a minute to talk about our partnership with the City of Douglasville. Today, we are one of two developers that are local, but I think what sets us apart from the other companies that we're presenting today is the ownership group is here. There's me. I have my partner Brad Smith along, who will talk with you later. Guys, I am not a regional manager that might not be here next year. I'm not a consultant. I'm in charge, along with Brad, to be here during this submission and this process, the DCA process, the construction. I'm the guy that has to sign all the liability for the construction contract. And in terms of management, we're the team that manages. So we are all over in terms of development, construction, and also management. We are vertically integrated. I think at the end of the day, and I'm going to turn this over, we may not be the largest company speaking here today, but we are the most personally involved company speaking today. When the city has an issue, if you have an issue, or you need questions answered, you're going to talk to me. You're going to talk to my partner, Brad Smith. When the construction is going on, you'll talk to me. You'll talk to Brad Smith. We have our own construction department. And then we're talking about a 45-year compliance period. Who's going to manage that? Who are you going to talk to? You'll talk to me for maybe the next 25 years. And that's why I have Brad. You can talk to him for the next 15. So we're totally involved from the very beginning into the end. I think that what you'll see is something a little different than what's been shown, but we do also have some of the same issues that the other developers do, but we can talk about that. I'm going to turn this over to Brad Smith.
Thank you. as Kevin said, a lot of what we're talking about is very similar. Everyone's here utilizing the same program, and there's a lot of similarities. So I'm just take a minute and try and define what makes us different. How do we differ? And I think it happens after the build. We take a lot of pride in how we manage our properties. I'm a partner in the company. I'm the one on site. I'll be at that site weekly. You'll see my face there. And the way we do that is we care. We have less than a 1% eviction rate in our properties company-wide. The way we do that is we take the time to slow down and figure out who's living in our properties. It is not a right to live in one of our properties, it's a privilege. A lot of management companies, and certainly third-party management companies, which we don't partake in, it's about beds and heads. Heads on beds, sorry. Heads and beds. And there's an incredible amount of pressure that starts from the top down, goes all the way down to the property about occupancy. When the leaders of your company are pressuring you for occupancy, your frontline manager is under an enormous amount of pressure to fill the property. They'll do whatever it takes to get their regional manager or their director of the area or whatever it is, the ownership group, to fill those units and get that occupancy there. We don't do that. We own our own properties. We manage our own properties. We take the time to make sure we know who's moving in them. One of the ways we do that is we do a very detailed vetting process on everybody we move in. We do a thorough criminal background check. Most companies will do a felony check or maybe a sex crimes check. We go all the way to traffic violations. There's a pattern there. We also take the time to do a residency history. Most people either, if they do one at all, will do a 6-month history. We do multiple year history. We also take time to vet the credit, and we have a very stringent debt-to-income ratio that people have to adhere to. We've learned over many years in business that creates a great resident. It creates somebody who's going to be active in the community, somebody's going to be active in the greater community, not only within the development itself. And I think it means something. At the end of the day, you want to be able to say who's going to be there, who's the ownership group that's going to be on site, making sure the property is well managed with on-site management that works. We're not just going to build it and run away. The other thing we do is we build for ourselves, and I think what that does is it guarantees a good quality project. I think just like if anyone here today was building their own home that you're going to live in for the rest of your life, you build with the greatest materials you can. You'd get the finest craftsmen you can, and you wouldn't cut any corners. And we're the same way. We're in this thing for the long haul. We don't want to have to rebuild it or rebuild the facade in 8 years because the brick is sliding off. So we're going to make sure we build it right. We're going to manage it right. The last thing Kevin mentioned, and I don't want to rehash it too much, but we're a small company. So, and you're kind of looking at the company. We have our construction department that's here, and certainly have accounting folks and that sort of thing. But this is it. And I think what that does for a partnership for the city of Douglasville is we offer you the time because we'll listen. We'll sit down with you and hash and rehash anything you like. We can make quick decisions. Decisions are made across the desk with Kevin and I just looking at each other. And a good example is that we had a property in Tuscaloosa, Alabama that horrifically was destroyed in an F4 tornado. I don't know if you remember back in 2011 where tornadoes left just a swath of destruction through Alabama and Georgia, and it was absolutely terrifying for everyone involved, and we were part of that. We had a brand new property that was just brought out of the ground, shiny, beautiful, and 2 months later it was destroyed by the F4 tornado. We're on the front page of the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times. Kevin and I sat across from the table and said, hey, what's the right thing to do here? A lot of companies would sit there and say, hey, let's get the CFO involved and let's get the bank involved and maybe let's try and find a third-party contractor. Kevin and I just looked at each other and said, hey, what's the right thing to do? Let's not worry about the dollars. What's the right thing to do? And we self-funded that construction rebuilt. And you know what? We had a lot of homeless seniors that needed a place to go. We had a lot of folks in the area who that lived here before. They're literally walking down the street with the little things that they were able to keep. So we rebuilt the senior property, Chastain Manor, put it back in service before the insurance check came in. We didn't try to cut corners and build for less than the insurance check and put the rest in our pocket. We did it the right way. So I think it's important, and that's Kevin's ugly mug up there that you can stare at, and we got a little recognition for that. So I just think it's when you're vetting the different developers, and again, we're all here under the same program. We really are. There's not a lot of ins and outs that's going to be different, but it's who you trust and who you want to do business with. And to tell you about what we're going to be doing, Christina Stone will give you an overview on that.
Thank you. And good afternoon. I'm Christina Stone. And we wanted to talk a little bit about this site because it's a unique site with a unique history. And so we're going to be partnering with Martin Riley Associates as our architect on this project. And, you know, a lot of people have seen the historic photo and Charles Perret's mill design with the window system. At the time, it was designed to maximize natural light, which is a really important feature and one that we think will carry on to a residential use. And we started this and we had a lot of conversations with our architect because we had a really short turnaround on this RFP, but we said, you know, we want the unique profile of this original building to kind of serve as the inspiration for the new facade for what we're proposing. So this is this would be the main site, the main building on the site, and this is the view from Broad Street. And I know we've had some talk this afternoon about noise. We will do a noise study. Most everything can be mitigated. You know, we'll have acoustical engineers look at it, so we know that that is something that will be done. I mean, they analyze both interior noise and exterior noise, and you'll see on a later slide that our site, you know, the back side of the site will kind of be buffered by this building, but we will also do analysis within these units and fully comply with everything that we find out in the noise study. But again, that's a little bit of an unknown, but we're aware of it. But that being said, you know, Martin Riley did a great job of kind of echoing that same triangular window bay system from the old building, and also kind of the mass and the proportion of that main building. In addition, that central area, when you go in those front doors, the main lobby will have a double height entryway, so it'll be a very open space. And again, that's to kind of echo the volume of the original mill. So the development in its entirety will be 80 units. It'll be a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms. And we are designing it to be in conformance with the Earthcraft Communities program. Some of the other folks have mentioned that. Earthcraft was developed in 1999 as a partnership between Southface Energy Institute and the Atlanta Home Builders Association. And it kind of sets the standard for green building in the Southeast. So it has a certification system for sustainably built and constructed communities. So it looks at it at the development, not only how it's built, but how it fits in the area, what it means for the residents, what it means for walkability, what it means to be connected to other parts of the community. So it's really meant for not only kind of the visual and the beauty of it, but also kind of the health of the residents and the implications. In terms of the rest of the site, we've got, you know, another thing when we thought about this with our architect, we said, you know, it's always good for people to have options. Some people might not be comfortable in a 3-story building. Some people like to be lower to the ground. Some people want their neighbor a little bit closer. Some people want, you know, people are going to want different things. So we kind of designed this hybrid site where you'll see for the site plan, that main building will be at the upper part of the site. And then kind of rimming the perimeter of the site, we've got 12 duplex cottages. And again, they're kind of designed to be evocative of the mill pyramid houses that were in the neighborhood. So each of those will be duplexes, so those will be another 24 units. So there'll be 56 units in the main building, and then 24 around the perimeter of the site. And in the middle there, you'll see there's a lot of green space there. There will be a gazebo, there will be gardening, there will be a walking trail, and so those kind of features are just designed to give people an opportunity to get some fresh air, meet their neighbors, spend time together. Again, this kind of goes to the health and wellness and the sense of community. You'll see on the site plan, we've still got the water tower. We'd love to keep it. That's kind of another unknown. You know, again, we're going to have structural engineers look at it. We'd love to keep it as kind of a visual piece of that green space. Oh, sorry. Okay. But in any case, so then in all of this design, again, it's kind of designed for community. So this was a piece, again, when we started thinking about this project and this neighborhood and what it meant for the city, we thought, you know what? The work that we do it doesn't exist in a vacuum. There's a neighborhood around there, and the city has other goals. So we kind of thought, what's a way to kind of maximize this opportunity and leverage what we would be doing at Phoenix Mill to kind of accomplish some of the other housing goals that the city might have. So we are proposing to create an individual development account, or IDA program. IDAs are matched savings accounts, and they are traditionally used to either, and they're used to help low and moderate income households build assets. And usually they're used to buy a house or make an investment in a small business, or use it for higher education or training. But we'd like to create a customized one for the Mill Village neighborhood that surrounds the site, because there's a mix of some owner-occupied houses and what appear to be renter-occupied investment properties. So we kind of wanted to do it in two parts, where homeowners, TBG is prepared to create a fund of $100,000 to create a match program up to $4,000 per participating household. And if you're an owner-occupant, you could only use the funds to rehab your house. So make a new roof, painting, maybe you have a senior who needs some accessibility modifications to their home, like a wheelchair ramp, so they could stay in their home with greater safety. For renters in the area, maybe there's people who want to become homeowners, who want to purchase a townhome or a single-family house. They could participate and use the money for down payment and closing costs. So we've already talked to Bank of the Ozarks, who will be our partner in this, and we think it's a great addition.
We could go on, but I think we'll stop here. We'll be glad to take questions. Brad will be here, Christina, myself.
Since it's an older site, since it's the middle site, we have no idea what's in the ground. Are you expecting the city to help you with any of that, or is that part of the whole project? That if there's something that's found in the soil, that you're responsible for that?
Thank you for that question. The answer is we don't expect any help in remediating the site. We think that there are some things there. Our environmental engineers don't think there are a lot. We'd like there to be a little bit for scoring purposes, but not too much. The truth is, none of us have done our environmental phase ones. I know that Jonathan had said that the city was going to do it. I talked to him and said, look, DCA requires a certain way of doing it. Don't spend the money. Let the development community do it. We need to do it. We need to find out what's there. But no, we're not asking for any funds from the city for environmental cleanup.
I have a question that's been sort of bothering me a little bit. Do you have to be married, have two persons to live in this property?
The answer is no, but Brad's going to talk that.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Do you have to be married to live in this property?
No, you do not need to be married. We have a 55 or older policy, and that relates to the entire household. It's not just the head of household. So meaning if you're 60 years old and you have some grandkids that you're taking care of, you would not be able to live there because you have to be 55 or older. But so, marriage is not a component. We don't even.
So if I'm 57 and I marry a 35-year-old, it says that she would not be able to allow to live on the property.
If she's less than 55 years old, that's correct.
So I have to move, right?
Well, you wouldn't have moved in the first place.
That 37-year-old is not going to live like that.
You're okay.
I read through our entire package here last night after getting home from work. Yours was the last one. I read it right before falling asleep and maybe during. Sorry, I don't remember all the details about it, so if you could refresh my memory. Were you proposing buying the land or leasing it from the city?
We are proposing a lease. There is a whole scoring section that we wanted to get to that is important in terms of whether this proposal or our competitors' proposals can be awarded the allocation of tax credits. As much as we want to talk about what we're building, what we want to do to help the Mill Village, there's a whole section about scoring, because at the end of the day, score is everything. The other thing with that, if I can just say it, scoring 1 or 2 points makes a huge difference. So if you're looking at someone's score that's 2 points lower, you go, well, that's not much. And as I said earlier today, it's a lot when you get that letter that you lost in a tiebreaker or you lost by 1 point. The other thing, we'd like to put this in, submit this for this year. Last year, this proposal would not have scored. This year it does. Next year, it may not. More than you wanted to know.
What would your bill, what would you think, is it $10 a year? I think that's what we talked about. First of all, I'd like to thank you for contacting me. You can actually get the first comprehensive knowledge on this, on these proposals from you guys, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, Bob.
So thanks about that. But, I do have, I mentioned earlier, the first you guys were in here talking earlier, I am concerned we put we invested in this property using taxpayer dollars. And I just hate to see a situation that doesn't provide a benefit back to taxpayers.
It's a good question, and we've talked about that. The lease is important because points are important. At the end of the day, the lease is important, but I think we can structure a plan that at the end of the lease, there's a buyout of the land. And so I think that takes care of some of that issue, except for you go, but Kevin, you're going to be dead and it's 45 years down, you know. But I think that the points awarded for the lease are important. Are we going to die on the sword over the lease? No, but we would want to sit down and make a pretty good argument that if you want the mill site redeveloped, those are important points to get. And DCA requires that it's a nominal fee of $10 $10 a month in perpetuity. In terms of taxes, and I can only tell you that I have a house up in North Georgia that I'm leasing from Georgia Power. I'm not paying taxes, I pay a lease, and then they pass through a rental amount. They pass through the Georgia Power taxes to me. So I think, though it's an affordable property, I think that there's a way to structure our proposal where there is other revenue. We'd want to make sure it's okay with DCA. I don't want to, we need to abide by their guidelines, but I don't see that taxes, some type of fee can't be paid for the use of the, in terms of taxes. I want to just say I could be wrong, but.
Well, we're on a very, accelerated time frame on this thing. I've been in politics long enough and in government long enough to realize when things start going fast, that's when you really need to slow them down. So, I mean, defensive with that, it just makes me cautious to move fast on something when we don't have important issues like that answered, at the start. So, I mean, I'd like to look into that. I appreciate you guys, wanting to prosper from your development. You wouldn't do it if you weren't going to. But I have the duty to my constituents to make sure that we're getting a return on our dollars that we've invested in.
I think a lot of those questions that you'll have can be answered. Unfortunately, the time frame, whether it's us or any of the other three developers presenting, we have a pre-application due in 2 weeks, those type of things. The way, for example, we have a flat, we put in for a design of a flat roof. Maybe in the end of the day, the city doesn't want that, but it's in keeping of the mill. We need to get a variance from DCA. That's something that has to be submitted. I would suggest that some of the other developers also have a time frame. Doesn't mean that the project would go through, because you may have some questions, but it would certainly help if there was a contingency developer that you said based on X, Y, and Z.
There's a lot of questions and a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot.
Right.
We don't have a lot of time.
Well, and I understand you guys sent us the RFP.
That's a good point.
I don't think they can take questions. Yeah. Mayor, any other questions?
Any other questions for TDG?
I'd just like to take the opportunity also to thank you all for reaching out, all of you all that have been involved today. And it's an unfortunate situation in one aspect in that we have such a short time frame. And I've already given my opinion as to how I feel that we need to approach it, but I do appreciate your completeness and your honesty and your straightforwardness and everything that you brought all of you. I really appreciate that.
We appreciate your comments. Thank you to the council. Mayor, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now, of course, well, after I speak, our city manager will have some comments to council members. We have 2 weeks, and March 31st will be the next committee meeting. That committee falls under Community and Economic Development. The chairperson is Councilman Mark Adams. We'll give our comments and suggestions to him. I would please urge you to read through this book again at your leisure. Section 5 gives the breakout on points, and there are another articles in there in Section 4 for Cedartown, Thomasville, articles from all over the state that GMA, Georgia Municipal Association Cities Magazine, has just come out with a couple of weeks ago. In addition to that, we will, at that time, follow up on March 31st to decide what we're going to do, if we're going to do anything. If we aren't, our choices will be to choose a firm or not to choose a firm, not to do anything, to decide if we're going to have greenfield, brownfield, how much money it's going to cost for cleanup, and what our projections will be after 92, and all of those things we'll consider. But take all those information, all those questions and concerns, we'll give them together, have ourselves 2 weeks to read over the information, think about it, and talk to Councilman Adams. Yes, sir.
Madam Mayor, is there a way that we could publish this on our website for the community to take a look at what's in these proposals? And also, I want to make sure that we have a designated time to get feedback from the community.
About that time. So it's being taped, so it'll be on our city TV, and that will be aired before the 31st. Certainly, some notes will be done. We can, yes, sir. Ms. Adams.
I'd just like to speak when you finish, I thought.
Yes, sir. You're welcome to speak. But in that respect, and we have the books. If they contact council members or myself, we can talk to them about all the information that's in the book and share it as public information.
Okay, so there's no way to publish those.
City manager, so we can scan and post it. So,
thank you.
okay, Chairman, you can speak, and then
I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank those in our community that have attended today. I'm sorry that we may have been short of information for you as to your availability or being given the opportunity to speak during this time. But please understand that during the 6 o'clock meeting tonight, there will be a time for public input, for comments from citizens and delegates, at which time you will be given the opportunity to do that, and we would welcome that. We would open the forum for that to be done, and I would hope that our city staff and city TV would make sure that that information is provided, that we are interested in hearing from you. I've heard from many constituents already. I do want to know how you feel about it. I will say this, I don't know that my fellow councilman, Mr. Miller, is aware of this or not, but I did ask for some information concerning the number of low-income senior housing units that we have within the community now. And I have received some of that information in this packet. Our ward has 220 units in it at present, which is and this particular project would be in our ward, and that is by far the vast majority of the units that we have in our community now. So having said that, I would hope that you would come to the meetings. Can't tell you exactly what time it will be, but it is toward the end of the meeting. Thank you so much for being here today.
so we're going to do the existing ones.
Yes, and the only thing I will add, yes, Columbia,
We're saying existing projects.
correct. The existing projects that Councilman Adams was speaking of, they're under tab 3, if you haven't read those. Columbia Gardens, Connor Senior Village, of course, which was mentioned, Liston, Villarica, Island Park Senior Village, Millway Park, Apartments in Douglas County supported housing, which are small units. The one thing that I did want to mention in my memo, I want to allow 2 weeks definitely for citizens to be able to contact you, to have public comment. We have tonight's meeting, Monday's meeting, the 21st, and then the 31st. So there are a few meetings between now and then that you can come in and have your voices heard publicly. So I want to make certain you know that. We will do our best to have all of the proposals scanned in. I shouldn't say do our best, we will. They will be available online. Kelly, can we have the video of this online as well under one link? So you will be able to watch all the presentations as well as have things loaded. I will say to Mayor and Council that once we decide what we want to do, I think the 31st one is fair because we want to be able to tell the presenters one way or the other what direction we want to go in so they can move on to their next step. If the choice is not to proceed with this type of development here on this site, I do leave you with a few questions that I would like to urge you to think about really for this budget cycle. If we're not going to proceed in this manner, what funding do we need to decide as far as where we go with the mill site, as far as cleanup, phase 1, phase 2, and then possibly having a meeting where we sit down and decide if not this, then what? And how do we plan for whatever that what is? So I've listed several questions in here so we can get direction. I'd like to have something in this budget cycle, which we're planning for now, which it seems quick, but at least some numbers that we can make adjustments while we move. I think everyone at this table with the elected officials feel strongly that now that we own it outright, the thought process is not to keep it in the same condition that it is, that you want to do something with it and put it together, put it to its highest and best use. So if you can think about those things as well over the next 2 weeks, staff would appreciate it so we can have some direction to move forward. And if there's anything that's not included in the state book, Councilman Siegel, we are respectful of the environment with paper, but we'd be happy to email that out if there's studies, comp plans. I know Michelle received from her today the comp plan as far as the need for senior housing, anything like that that you need to be able to help to make your decision or to speak to the public and to be knowledgeable on this subject. Please let us know and we'll make certain we get this for you.
Okay, we're going to have a short break. Council is 4:37. Our committee meetings start at 5 o'clock in the conference room, so you have a few minutes to freshen up, catch your breath for the next meeting.
Thank you, guys.